John, thanks very much. It's great to be able to work on this with you and folks that are here today and others that have joined us as co-sponsors. I want to provide some historical context for this, if I could. In 1974, Congress passed, the President signed something dealing with impounding of funds. And basically, this is what the law said in 1974. When the President signs into law an appropriations bill, he or she may then send to the Congress a rescission message calling for rescinding or reducing spending in that bill that he had signed into law. As a matter of fact, over the years, presidents have sent any number of rescission messages to the Congress. Sometimes they are adopted. Oftentimes, more often than not, they are ignored, as if they were never offered. Starting in the 1990s, I offered in the House of Representatives legislation that said, effectively, if the President signed an appropriations bill into law, he could send in a rescission message to the Congress, and we could vote it up or down, but we had to vote on it. And at the time, we proposed this, doing this for 2 years. I called it a 2-year test drive for statutory line item veto power. It passed 312, I believe, to 97. A majority of Democrats in the House, a majority of Republicans in 1992 voted for it, came over to the Senate where it was to die, not a slow death, but a fairly quick death. And was not taken up in the Senate. I'll let you figure out why. In 1996, I think Senator McCain, I think Senator Coates and others put together the bill that was actually signed, line item veto bill, that was signed by President Clinton, subsequently declared unconstitutional. How does it differ from our proposal here today? The 96 version that was declared unconstitutional was, in fact, unconstitutional. It also extended the President's powers not only on appropriated spending, it extended his powers to entitlements, it extended his powers to revenue measures, and it said unless the Congress by a 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate overrode the President's proposal, they would become law. It was an enormous shift of power, of authority, from a co-equal branch of government, the legislative branch, to the executive branch. A friend of mine once described that bill as a bazooka under the desk of the President. What we're proposing today is not a bazooka. What we're proposing today is really a rifle to enable us and the President to take a rifle shot at spending which, in a day of trillion dollar budget deficit, just does not make sense. We need in our government today to create what I call a culture of thrift. A lot of people around the country think we operate here in Washington with a culture of spendthrift. We need to replace that with a culture of thrift. We need to look in every nook and corner of the federal government to make sure that we're spending taxpayer monies in a cost-effective way. My mantra throughout the debate on health care reform was better health care outcomes for less money. And we shouldn't just be focused on better outcomes for health care for less money. We need to be focused on better outcomes for virtually everything we spend money on, whether it happens to be discretionary domestic spending, defense spending, or entitlement spending. I'll close with this. 2008, President Barack Obama, President-elect Barack Obama, was giving his farewell address as a senator in the United States Senate chamber. And as he was doing that, I was writing down a number of ideas that I wanted to share with him to help begin creating this culture of thrift. He was about to inherit a budget deficit of $1 trillion or more. We had just seen our nation's debt doubled in an 8-year period of time, and looking at deficits that are going to be even larger. I wrote down, almost on the back of an envelope, 6 ideas that I gave to him that day. Those ideas included, let's do something about improper payments, which last year exceeded $125 billion. Let's do something to go after and recover monies that have been fraudulently taken from the Medicare Trust Fund, post-audit cost recovery. Let's do something about all that surplus property that we own, that we're paying money for to maintain, to provide utilities, to secure it, to maintain. Let's do something about those and save tens of millions of dollars. Let's do something about the tax gap, where we have over $300 billion of revenues owed to the Treasury not being collected. Let's do something about major weapon systems cost overruns, and John McCain has done a lot on this already. Items like the F-22, which he and Carl Levin led the fight on, say, you know, if it's not a cost-effective weapon system, let's do something about that. But let's do something about that. And the last item that I wrote on that list that day was statutory line item veto power, to make the President's statutory rescission powers real. and to put the accountability on us. If he says these are areas where, frankly, we can spend our money more cost effectively, the Congress would have to stand up and be counted. We could vote it down with a simple majority, but we'd have to vote on it. And that's what we need to do. With that having been said, who do we go to next?
You recently had a meeting with President Obama. Did you bring this up, and was he receptive?
In general terms, both Tom and I have had conversations with members of the administration and the president, but I didn't address it a specific proposal. As Tom mentioned, he's been supportive in the past, but I didn't specifically. You've had conversations.
I raised the issue with the president, as you said earlier, over 2 years ago when he was leaving the United States Senate. Actually, the notes that I wrote on the back of an envelope and gave to him, he looked at it and he said, as he walked off the floor, he said, "I can't read your writing." So we sent it to him. We typed it out and sent it to him later in the day. In the last year, we haven't mentioned Russ Feingold. We should mention Russ because Russ and John and I were a team in the last Congress, and I know his heart is still in this fight. But we've raised this. We met with OMB last year. We have had discussions as recently as last week rather, with Jack Lew about the proposal. The president will send us his budget in a week or so. And when we leaf through that budget, we'll see what the president has to say about this proposal. Our hope is that he will endorse it. Let me offer a concluding thought. I spoke earlier of the need to replace in Washington a culture of spendthrift with a culture of thrift. Everything that I do, everything that we do, almost everything that the government does, we can do better. And there's a pretty good chance we can do better for less money. And the real challenge for us is, as we look at programs from A to Z, defense, domestic discretionary, entitlements, as we look at all those programs, to ask ourselves this question: can we do this better? Can we do it for less money? A member of my staff likes to say, are we looking for a bigger bang for the buck? I think we're looking for a better bang for the buck. We're looking for a better bang for the buck. And this is part of the way. This is one of the ways that we'll get to that goal. Again, thank you, John, for the great leadership, and everybody who's joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.